Good evening, it's 6:01 PM. This is the work session of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Conservation and Recreation Director Dr. Alex Jackson, Township Manager Julie Heilicke, and Engineer John Tressler. This work session is for the express purpose of discussing changes to the economic development zone for a denser form of dwelling units, along with the commercial incentive, as well as moving forward with our sign ordinance update. As a matter of housekeeping, the board will deliberate to its pleasure and then take public comment. Public comment will be taken consistent with resolution number 602. And it's not a question and answer period, though we hope to facilitate fair discussion. On the housing, before we really start, I just want to highlight that today's draft was created with consensus in mind and centers on a few key points: the preservation of the commercial corridor, the desire to keep character of the community by concentrating growth away from residential zones, plan for growth with constraint in mind, hence the various requirements in the draft, the acreage requirements, utility service requirements, prime frontage on high traffic roads, and permitting an incentive structure for commercial component. Other key facts that I think bear consideration kind of set the stage. Median rent in Smithfield is about $1,194 versus $1,300 in Monroe County. The school district has been losing population, not gaining population, so at present it is more advantageous for them to have more residents. 32,000 housing units is the shortage that Northeast Pennsylvania has, according to the governor's housing action plan, which was released this week.
3,200?
32,000.
In where?
Northeast Pennsylvania.
What is that defined as?
That is Monroe, Pike, Wayne, Carbon. I think, well, it also includes Schuylkill. So it's not just Monroe County, but there's several.
Carbon up, probably.
Yeah. 50% of Monroe County renters are considered burdened. 25% of owners are also considered burdened, which is when you pay over 30% of your monthly income for your housing costs. So while we focus today on density in terms of apartment complexes and similar structures, the housing crisis is across multiple different types of housing, and multiple parts will be needed for the solution, but this is just one piece of it today. The other thing I want to highlight before we get into the details of that, there are essentially 43 eligible parcels with the frontage that would be confirmed and would require road access. That's kind of on a case-by-case basis. It is 609 acres, which is only 4% of Smithfield's total acreage. So with that, I can go over some of the details of the draft, or John, if you have any opening thoughts. Just kind of wanted to set the stage with all of that context in place.
Well, I've been involved pretty closely in the drafting of this. I think it includes some of my thoughts already. I like the fact that you have the minimum 12 units per acre to qualify as high residential. I think if you don't have that, you could get residential, that you don't want. So I think that's good. I still have some concerns, and maybe I don't fully understand it. I still have some concerns about not being able to take access from a state highway. I'm reading 4 correctly.
Sure.
I don't think you can take access from a state highway. Am I correct in reading that?
Essentially.
And it means you can't have an opening to the apartment complex on the road.
I'm gonna defer to John's expertise on.
That's what this says. I'm not saying one way or the other.
Sure.
I don't know whether that eliminates some of the parcels you identified or not. When I looked on the map, it looks like there's some parcels in yellow that only have direct access on a state highway.
Right.
one of the projects that we talk about, because it's the closest to being a real project in Smithfield Township, and that's Dr. Khan's project. And just to, like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And to better illustrate what a concern might be, I'm gonna pass out his sketch plan. Now, this was back in 2001, and he admittedly has altered it. But I think we can still see a concern that I have.
Sure. Also, just to highlight, I think in the draft that's in front of us, the B there conflicts with B in the next one, 3 versus 4. Because I think the frontage limitation was potentially added to be another option instead of the direct vehicular access, because it would depend upon where you have the frontage, but I know that that's the question. While you're passing that out, I'll just emphasize our requirements quickly, just again, as staging. We're talking potentially about parcels that have a minimum of 5 gross acres that are served by central sewer and water. And they have to comply with the access requirements that we're talking about, one of which would theoretically be tracks with an aggregate frontage, you mean total frontage, exceeding 500 linear feet along US Route 209, Seven Bridge Road, or US Route 209 Business, Milford Road, to that qualify. Essentially, if you're on 447, you're fine no matter your linear frontage, given lower traffic volume there. Whereas with the higher traffic volume, 209s, that's kind of a discussion point. One of the reasons the draft includes in the language it does is kind of to foster redevelopment of existing parcels that have legacy driveways. Then the requirement would be a minimum density of 12 dwelling units per acre, like John mentioned, and can't exceed a density of 20. That would be by right, with height limit of 50 feet and impervious surface coverage slightly higher than the underlying zone at 65%. And if they were to exceed those standards, it can add height or density should it provide a non-residential component, which would be one of the other principal permitted uses in the economic development zone, and that would allow them to go from 21 to 25 dwelling units per acre, along with buildings of 60 feet. The other point that I wanted to talk about, that the impervious surface coverage there was 80%. I know that was in one of the early drafts that John provided, and I didn't know if that was a conscious choice or not, but I figured the incentive ladder should theoretically promote having the commercial improvement at the higher level with the impervious coverage rather than the lower one, and have it be the same. I think that creates more of an incentive ladder. The other thing is, per John's recommendation, the parking ratio is theoretically 1.5 spaces per unit.
So just so I understand, so if you're building commercial on it, which technically is allowed now,
Correct.
you can increase your impervious as opposed to otherwise, if you're just doing this high density residential, you get 65, and otherwise you get 80. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the other point to note is with the residential, regardless, it's 1.5 spaces per unit, at least as contemplated. But where it includes a non-residential use, per the incentive, the parking there can be demand-based, like we're shifting towards on the commercial. And hopefully, one of our future meetings that will
So given that
be
they have
codified elsewhere.
given that they have to go, is this allowed by right or by conditional use?
They are both by right.
So how does the supervisors review that? Is that in land development?
This is zoning which permits the use, and that's the minimum criteria, that they would still have to go through the whole land development process.
I understand. I guess I'm just saying, says that if, when you have something that's allowed by right, and it states that you can, do something if approved by the supervisors, does that mean that would flush out in land development?
It would have to
Yeah.
comply with the same comments.
That's what it would be flushed.
Okay.
That was your question.
That's my question. Yep.
Don, what did you want to show us on that?
Okay, first thing I wanna make clear is that that sketch has been, I grabbed that because it's the only one I had that was, you could see the overall site. And it's the only one in Smithfield Township that I'm aware of that is representing a high density development. And it's in an area that I think that we would approve, and more so would even like to see it happen because there's some benefit to the township. Primarily the realignment of Franklin Hill Road.
Right,
But, and if this project goes forward, I think the developer is gonna flip the parking from the back of the buildings to the front of the buildings
It's already been approved by the.
by the zoning hearing board,
Right.
right?
they have various.
But I don't think that changes my point, and my point, which I'm taking a lot of time to get to, is
That's okay.
there is an access on 447, which is a state highway. And I think the question that everyone has to ask themselves, do you really want to build that many units with only one access into the site off of Franklin Hill Road? Because we're talking high density development,
Right,
and we've got to be able to get to them. And not just this just happens to illustrate the point.
sure,
There's other sites that, you know, we may have similar circumstances, even if they do have a township road there. Ideally, when you have this many units being contemplated, you like to have two accesses. For emergency
That looks
vehicles.
like a right in, right out, is that what it is, or?
It doesn't show it that way.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, to be honest, Robert.
Yeah.
So my point is, I'm still a little bit concerned about restricting that.
And by the way, it is also out another road, which I don't love, but. Because then you got people that wanna go right across and.
Yes, but that's where you want it as opposed to offset, because
What'd you say, Michael? I didn't hear you.
Unless it's right in, right out only,
that, yes, you could do that.
because I just said that the second exit on this, I mean, we're not reviewing this specifically, right? We're reviewing this. Potential change that have ramifications for everything. I'm just saying this second entrance, I mean, the last thing we wanna do is create a thing where people are trying to cross when you want them to only go right in, right out, is what I'm saying. I guess my question on this whole front is. I mean, if the goal of adding this requirement was to restrict the number of parcels that can do this.
Mhm.
I think that's what it was, right? Let's say you can't have frontage because of this, because otherwise I would think that any frontage. Would require. Traffic search study and.
Correct, and that'd be
And
per
because it's a PennDOT roads, they're gonna be. As restrictive as they can be, and are going to require lights and. Also stuff, which probably will be better for the township generally, because you're taking what. Is probably not to PennDOT standards, up to PennDOT standards.
right,
So, as a tool for making it a better site, I don't like it in here. As a tool for limiting the number of places it can be done, I get it.
yeah,
But I think what you could do ultimately is. On any of these sites, is just building a road in. So what, was there a value of that? And I guess that's the other question is. Is there a way to achieve that? Limiting
Right.
of parcels without. Without this covenant.
well, let me highlight, reiterate what I did before, cause I realized the inherent conflict and I don't think I meant. I guess it's good because the discussion point's here, so we can figure it out. But when I wrote on the frontage limitation, basically permitting anything on 447, because there's. On all the 5 acre parcels that are there that have the other criteria, makes a lot of sense. I think that's because we didn't view 447 as the prime commercial corridor. It's certainly good for medical and other commercial, which seems to be medical, which seems to be the one type of mixed use that is still happening in townships like ours that are ex-urban becoming suburban. But the frontage limitation would preserve the space on 209 or 209 business. For prime commercial development, so you could theoretically remove the prohibition on the direct state highway access and require some sort of driveway, like you're saying, I guess, as opposed to How do you articulate, John, do you think that the distinction between driveway
Well,
access, that's like an
I-
actual,
I think if you could say, I may have to think about the word a little bit, but no. No residential building. Or. Adjacent parking can take direct access to a state road, which means you've got to create a boulevard entrance or some sort of entrance off of the state
right?
into the site, which is what I think you're trying to, although I
Yeah.
do know you were talking about preserving the frontage for commercial, but. I just think that's hard to put into language
Well,
and to do it.
the reality is the commercial's doing that almost every time you're seeing commercial. PennDOT is requiring it anyway. And
Correct,
this might be a moot point because I cannot imagine PennDOT allowing anyone to just turn on to any of these 3 roads.
I don't think so.
Correct.
anymore.
Not anymore. If they're gonna do a study, they're gonna say, no, you either need a light and put one in, or you need to, I mean, I know that's the case for. What's it called? That by Buttermilk Falls, I mean.
oh,
I
correct,
if you wanted to reuse that corner there. That is presently the old Smithfield Township building. You'd have to. Basically build whole roads that go into there. I mean, I heard, anyway, I'm not knowing for sure, but that was the case. It was gonna be multi-million dollars if you ever wanted to develop that that corner
Right, 'cause you
property.
essentially have to do the signalization,
And more than that, yeah, you have to figure out a way to go right and left and,
John, do new signals all have to be green light go?
That's not a requirement. You could make it a requirement, if someone were, and Pocono does this.
Yeah, cause I
If-
think that would be something we would want to,
If someone brings in a project that requires a traffic signal, which is in sync with your green light go program, you can require them to make that,
cover the cost of the green light.
Yeah.
Is there extra, but when they put them in?
you gotta have the software and the sensors.
We did that with, Mosher's, Drive, didn't we?
Well, I know
Yeah, we
upgrading,
made-
I know
we made-
upgrading them is cost, but if you're gonna put them brand new in, I don't know.
Well, I don't
that
think
much
it's, I don't think it's a
extra.
big extra.
Yeah.
No, but they're not gonna do it if we don't tell them they have to.
Yeah,
that's true.
John, to your point about the second exit, I think that's very important. Even if it's on a state highway, if there's a second exit, maybe it's a right in, right out, but I think for, safety purposes, we always need an extra.
Yeah,
We've required that.
A lot of townships permit, because a lot of townships have that same concern, but by the same token, they don't wanna. Restrict the development to the point that they don't get the development, so what they, if you remember, you like the development down the shop, right, what's that called, Max Farms, what's the farm, the name, Madison Farms? That's a boulevard entrance. And the townships will consider that. As, some townships will consider that as a 2-way in and out, because it's so wide.
Yeah.
That if one leg got blocked. You could still direct traffic in emergency
that
in
makes
and
a lot
out of the other
sense.
one. So I think. We might wanna craft some language. That
But it
would
de-
permit that.
but it depends on how big it is. If it is only 12 units,
If it's only 12 units, I
You
don't
don't
think you
need
need
that.
it. No, I would call the cutoff closer to somewhere between 50 and 100, where you need two.
and then 2 entrances and exits from where? From the highway?
Well, that'll be determined by PennDOT, right? Unless they
Again, why
have the
would,
frontage.
why put it? PennDOT's gonna make you do any of these things anyway, if they see that there's a need for.
No, they're not gonna do your planning for you. They're only going to. They're only going to put in certain requirements to issue the highway occupancy permit.
Right.
Now, the minimum number of the units you're gonna have. If you adopt this. Similar to what you have, it is gonna be 60. Cause you've gotta have. A minimum of 5 acres, you've gotta have a minimum of 12 units per acre,
And so
so.
that makes you go up if your space is not.
Right, but you're also gonna have a minimum of 60 units, so the question is. Do you want 2 points of ingress and egress for 60 units, or do you want it for 100 units and more? And I can't advise you just off the top of my head.
Sure.
Right now, but that,
So I imagine a lot of it depends on how your site. the
I
site-
also think, I think this plan right here, for sure it needs it, but, I mean, when I saw this, I'm thinking about 447, I'm thinking about. You're driving on 447 and there's, I don't know what the road's called, where all the medical buildings
Yeah,
are.
and Parkinson's.
Yeah, Parkinson's Drive, no, not Parkinson's Drive,
The other one.
the other one,
The
Plaza,
big one.
Plaza Court.
Plaza
Yeah.
Court.
Yeah.
There's I mean, for me, that is a great example where I fully imagine, you got a medical building and now the medical building, you come to the end and there's an apartment complex at the end. It totally
Makes
makes sense
perfect
that
sense.
that's where you would have this sort of development. You see it in lots of places. It's very tasteful. It also abuts a residential behind it. So you
It's a good
you
transition.
generally want, if possible, to transition, generally, not always, but residential prefer to be next to dense residential than they do next to commercial, because commercials can be bright and lights and busy and traffic. So it makes sense to sort of say, all right, I'm not saying frontage specifically.
Yeah.
But generally a little bit more commercial, and then you sort of drive back that windy road, and there's an apartment there. I can imagine the same thing for places on 209, so long as we don't get so far back that you really want to be into private homes. But it would be, honestly be weird to drive down that road, Parkinson's Drive,
Uh-huh.
and big building, and then a single residential home at the end. That seems out of place.
Yeah.
To me.
I agree with that.
Let me, if I can.
But in that case, I don't know that you want two entrances for that apartment, because you've got this long winding road that takes you there.
Yeah, that you may not need it because it may not make any sense.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem. There's no way to write an ordinance that fits every piece of land in every use.
Of course.
True. So you just do your best. But another real life example, just to keep in mind, do any of you know the old former Pagoda restaurant over on 611 in Pocono Township?
Yes.
What is it next to now?
It's sort of sitting there by itself.
611, how
Yeah.
far up?
It's up around the Saki, up around that area.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's been sitting vacant for years.
See, they're
Anthony Mall picked it up.
Japanese restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anthony Mall picked it up and going to tear the restaurant down and put apartments in. Now, 2 points. It's right on 611. I mean, he's not setting it back. The other point I want to make is he came in with a plan with 2 points of access, one on 611 and one on the road that goes alongside of it. It's a corner property. Can't remember the road, not that it matters. In spite of the township writing letters and saying, we want this access on the 611 in addition to the other road, PennDOT refused to give them an HOP.
Sure.
Why did they refuse?
They just said they felt it was dangerous and they weren't going to issue it. So even though we wanted 2 entrances to that project,
Uh-huh.
PennDOT said no.
Because they're too close to each other.
I think it's the volume of traffic that was going through that.
Well, 611 right there is busy.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
very busy. I mean, you can't even get out sometimes
They
during
will
the
only
day.
do a right or left out only?
Nope, we tried that. What they finally did was say you can have an emergency access as long as you put bollards up and a chain across.
Uh-huh.
So that, it's a true emergency to utilize it.
That makes sense.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Julia, I think Charlene's trying to get on Zoom.
People are able to get on the Zoom if they go on the website.
People on.
I know, that's what I just got a text.
So I know I'm not making it
Sorry.
any easier, but I mean, these are real life examples that you just should keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, if it's too dangerous, then they shouldn't have it there, obviously, but.
Oh, yeah.
uh,
I mean, I think that we could contemplate removing that prohibition as long as we add something about boulevard entrances, etc.
Well,
Or
maybe we
something
can
else.
add something about emergency services approving the entrances to say.
Well,
if
they
there's a
have to,
problem.
they get the plan per our existing ordinance.
I think we could say something simple as. Any site contemplating more than 100 units must have 2 points of ingress and egress. And if 2 points of separate, I have to work on the words, egress aren't possible, then a boulevard entrance is required. And
Sounds good, and I would just put question marks next to the number 100, because maybe you could do a little research to see what makes sense in terms of.
Well, 100's gonna theoretically give you 1,000 cars a day in and out. It's 10 trips per unit.
It's a lot. It is. a lot.
Dartmouth Drive has a boulevard entrance to Alaska Pete's and the businesses
Yes,
there,
it
right?
does.
That's
Yes.
cool, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good example.
Wait, that's not on here though, because it's not,
Oh no, I'm just saying like that's an example.
I'm just curious, but that's not R1 there, is it?
No, so,
The gateway has boulevard entrances on both sides down there. The
Correct.
main entrance into
Yeah.
Wawa and then the new road that goes across. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure that's a
It's
boulevard.
Boulevard, yeah, correct.
yeah,
But I'm just saying, just curious, why does
yeah, why is
that
it?
road included? Oh, it is included. It is included, it's right.
Yeah, it's just that some of those parcels are not 5 acres.
Ah, gotcha.
Which, you know, if you want to, you could say, I mean.
Someone could. Merge properties if they really wanted
Yeah,
to do that.
one of the ones that I think would be perfect is on 447.
Well, there is one, that's
And-
66 right here, is exactly the page I was thinking. Right? I don't
Exactly.
know what that is, but
Right,
in my mind, it kind of makes sense too, if you were going by Alaska Pizza and went down that boulevard and you went down to where what is that, Marshall's Plumbing?
right, well, if
Down
you,
there, it makes sense for an apartment to
Yeah.
be there.
makes a
It's
lot,
not where there's gonna be, no one's gonna build single family homes down there.
Correct.
Not only that, it backs up to the beautiful, preserve of nature. So
right, because a lot of it's PennDOT, yeah, so. A lot of the reason why why we theoretically would limit it 5 acres is because most of the ED zone properties that are over 5 acres. Do have their access on, you know, those roads, there's a couple that are off of. Smaller arterial or collector roads. You know, that don't have direct 209 or don't have any other direct access. So if you wanted to consider those, great. My thought on that was sort of. This ordinance is at least a start, and then if we wanted to add other criteria. That makes, you know, sense, we could do that. Probably hard to write an ordinance that permits it. I mean, it won't look clean, like it'll be, probably adds a page if you're like, unless you're on one of, you know, these types of roads, which are, ordinance defines a couple different types, there's. Highways, there's arterial and collector roads. Side streets, alleys, etc. You could permit it on those. I think the frontage limitations made sense as a way to preserve. Possibilities along. 209 business and. Regular 209. A lot of these also. Are already improved. So you would either have to have. Significant subdivision go on. Or lot consolidation. The other thing is, even amongst these theoretical eligible parcels. Yeah, I know for a fact the sewer and water does not extend to all of them at present. This is
No.
kind of the maximum.
Most of these are not, all these ones up here, all here, that don't have sewer water.
Jacob and Michael, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm getting a text message too. Charlene is in the waiting queue. Can you verify that, please?
There's a waiting queue in this meeting, so she's in the wrong meeting.
Have a waiting room set up.
Yeah.
She must be in the wrong meeting, because there's no waiting on this.
No, I sent her the link too, so she says she's waiting to be accepted.
Julia, you just have to click on the host tools.
The what?
Oh, hold on one second.
There is no waiting room on this meeting, so
She's
she's got.
definitely in the wrong room, because there's no waiting room on this meeting.
All right, I'll tell her. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, the constant noise. Wow, what a difference. So a lot of these are improved, and a lot of the eligible properties are also zoned. There's a couple on here, not a lot, but the one by Independence, corner of Independence in like East Brown, by ESU, that's actually R2. Generally the rest of, yeah, the one that has University, Ridge,
Ridge.
and the one next to it are
Oh,
zoned
up
R2.
here. up
Yeah,
here.
correct. But a lot of these are improved, some of them are, the ones not on this land, not on this map are, there's a couple PennDOT properties. Which certainly don't anticipate them to sell. That are open space. But all of these are basically the theoretical. I mentioned before that there's basically 43 parcels that. Are actually eligible. If we change the access requirement. There might be a couple more that are eligible. The only other thought that I hadn't heard today was. Well, if we do the commercial, can we locate the development overall? In the, along the frontage, and I don't see that being a problem if they do the commercial. The residential, I think it's probably the only thing you're gonna get on some of those parcels if it's the only thing. I would prefer to see, you know, the mixed use happen, and I think we've gotta make clear that it could be in a separate building. And if there's the mixed use component, that commercial or non-residential component should be located in the, you know, along the frontage. But again, most of these parcels are kind of strange where they're either not on the state roads or they are and they kind of, you know, go back further. They're not necessarily all frontage.
You know, you,
So if remove that prohibition, it's really, PennDOT's gonna make it, that's gonna make the decision, which.
Well,
may
that's
be
true. Either,
Okay, anyway. You know,
Yeah, a lot of these places, they're not gonna,
whatever we decide and however.
Number,
restricted,
like
PennDOT
this-
will be worse.
the corner of 209 and 447, for instance. That lot is on there, I see it, but I don't,
which one?
number 8, it's written in that thing, I can't imagine,
Oh.
Unless you figure out how to access that.
Well, so that's the only reason I highlighted that.
PennDOT already said when they tried to propose the sheets there that you cannot access either one of the roads from that corner, you must go through Gateway,
Right.
and of course,
They don't talk to each other.
yeah, you know what that would take to accomplish.
Couple million, but, that's why I put that one, on there. Cause it would be eligible if it would connect Mosier Farm Drive or Gateway Drive, whichever
Right.
one
Okay,
it would be.
And there are some possibilities where you would prefer the residential to be in front of the commercial.
yeah, many
Well, I
cases,
mean, if you get a bunch of storage units, that's commercial, that's
Got it.
permitted.
That's true, what just went up in Stroud by the Chick-fil-A, I would definitely want that behind, residential.
Right.
Well, look what's going up on 209 and Middle Smithfield at Orville. You know,
Isn't that self-storage, right?
yeah, those boxes.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm only pointing out it's impossible to write an ordinance that's gonna cover what somebody might think of.
no, and I honestly have come around a lot more, I mean, I recognize that there's no more retail. Retail's gone, and
Well, small retail is possible, it's big retail.
it's possible, but, and, I mean, I'd like to have as much as possible, but I'm also aware that you're not getting little toy stores anymore, and you're not, I mean, and if you are, they might be on on downtown Main Street, Stroudsburg, a cute little shop where someone's walking by, but you're not. And I understand, I mean, I've heard the plight of developers being like, there's no one that wants to come to do anything, and your only option is a giant grocery store.
It would be cool to have one. But I do think you're right, and.
And then is it better to have a plethora of automotive shops, self-storage? It's not necessarily, so, I mean,
I mean, I agree with you. I do think though that if some of this happens, cause on a lot of these parcels are already improved.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind, none of this is proposing any changes to the R1 zone. I mean, and if you talk about like the rural character of the community, that is where your rural character currently
Yeah.
lies. There's not really rural character along 209 and 447. And especially, I mean, for me, especially 447, if a apartment complex went up anywhere on that road, I don't think anyone would even sort of see it as out of place or notice a difference.
In many ways, it is, oddly enough, and I don't think this was intentional. I don't know that they had enough foresight to imagine this at the time. But the vast majority of the parcels that are highlighted were B1 or B2, which were the medical or professional corridor.
Mhm.
Some of them were C1.
What was the other
like-
one? It was C1.
Yeah, some of them were C1, like the ones by Gateway, Shawnee Ridge, and a couple on 209 Business. But otherwise,
Were they sprawled out? I mean, I don't remember that. Were they? They had to be together though, right? Otherwise they would have been spot zoning.
they don't all have to be contiguous, just there weren't many, I mean, they were big islands, but they were still
Like a few
islands.
parcels, another few parcels.
Yeah,
And we had B1, B2, C1 and C2?
I don't think there was a C2. Must,
That change occurred, I believe, within a week of me either.
well, no, I mean, but I don't
So
think,
I-
I don't think there were any, I think it was just C1, B1 and B2.
You know, another thing to consider is if we have commercial, we don't want, let's say, storage, but storage might be all right in the back, behind apartments. Just like automotive might be good in the back, so it doesn't take frontage, and, but it's there.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying there is I don't know that I wanna, if we're gonna do this. Don't make it a requirement that commercial be in front.
That's
If,
true, we
if
can let
only,
them
if
pick.
only the rationale for. For the whole purpose is that there, some of these plots make sense.
So no required orientation.
I mean, who's gonna? It's not like you're gonna see a residential building and then behind it, you're gonna get a Dairy Queen or something.
Yeah,
not
that's
gonna
true.
happen.
It's not practical.
No one's gonna build that.
True.
They're gonna put the commercial that they want on the road that's more traveled.
Right,
Well, except it's something like, self-storage.
Or self-storage, we don't want, you don't need that. I mean.
Well, it serves the apartment dwellers.
Well, that's the other thing, then you might need to start looking at, I mean, that's next on the agenda, but. Allowing for some of these mixed units to have proper signage so that people feel comfortable, they can put a storage facility out of sight because there's a sign on the main road that says it's that way.
that's a good point too.
I think they probably can.
Michael, why don't you give us your wish list, and let's work from there, let's get this thing finished.
I don't necessarily have a wish list, I mean, I just, there are the couple points we said, I don't think it makes sense to have the two locations.
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't think you need to have the mandatory requirement that commercial be frontage. If it's a mixed use.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, this thing says even, right, if I'm reading this properly. There's probably 40 lots. In the parcels in the township that today could feasibly house this. And only if there was water and sewer expanded to the whole township, basically, could you have up to 60, 70, I mean,
Right.
73.
well, certainly at this rate, I don't imagine that.
But my one other thought is there are a few properties right now that are sort of skirting the law around apartments, namely, and I think they're ugly for the most
Yeah.
part. There's one over here on Milford on 209, that is a long-term stay that is in ED, so it's a hotel technically, but really it's an apartment complex.
Talking about Cabana Lane,
I don't know what it's called. It's right on the.
He's talking
on the-
about Marshall's Creek extended stay.
well, that's on the other 209, business 209.
Yeah,
Okay,
what I'm just saying is it's,
skirting the law, you're right.
yeah, and like honestly, if it meant somebody was gonna knock that down and build a nice apartment building, it'd probably look nicer there than what you have
I think
now.
they'd rather do it, cause right now,
So I just wonder if there's a way to incentivize
yeah,
the removal of blight to give something a little bit nicer. I don't know how you do that, but especially if it's in the same vein.
Well,
I mean, they might wanna do that, but I mean, do they have a developer
I
that's
know
gonna
one
do
way.
that? Do they have the revenue to
I
do
know
it?
one way you could do it. You could build in, I mean, it's a theoretical way, not legally tested, but if you, I mean, I don't know that a lot of it is, but theoretically, you could incentivize it by making a conversion from an extended stay into this, convert that use automatically eligible for the density bonus without a commercial
Or
requirement.
not just change it, they actually have to build a new building.
That's what I'm saying,
But the extent,
because right now it's only one story.
Right now it's a motel, it looks like a motel that,
Looks like a crack.
extended,
Yeah, it looks
extended stay should really be added as a by right use. Because it's part of what we,
no, I don't want extended stays.
well, if you have an apartment building and you can go to 5 floors because you have 1 floor commercial, extended stay could be part of that commercial.
But we're
It's
saying,
really an end.
Robert, we're saying. They
No, I-
don't have to have a bottom commercial, this would allow them to do that as just an apartment building.
Right, but they could do what I'm saying because extended stay should be a by right use anyway.
It is a by right use because it's. a
Well, it
hotel.
isn't because we have no definition of it, but it should be under inns and things like that.
That's how they've gotten away with it, by being defined as a hotel, right? Or-
Yeah, but
Which is
we-
allowed by right in the ED zone.
We don't really have a definition of it, but we should
Well,
in the code.
we have one, it just has to change. Technically, the problem is that when that particular property came up with the zoning hearing board, they said, oh, you don't have a strong enough definition. So it's essentially.
Well, fine, we'll add that to
month-
the list of things that we should probably fix in
Well,
our ordinance.
you
Is
know-
that there?
Believe it or not, we once had like 20 joint sessions where we didn't get past B on the definitions, so.
And the definitions of hotel stays, we need to get back to
Hoping that we can do that, but I think.
Cause that's working around it.
Yeah, I think the point's well taken, though. I think we should see if there's a way to incentivize.
Well, how many units were there? Does anybody know?
I don't know, and that's not the only one, there's. Or there could be others, which is even worse, that are,
I think there is one that is a lawful non-conformity. And then there is that one which does technically conform according to the zoning hearing board.
well, and the other one, I mean,
Are they 5 acres?
Oh, yeah.
the other one, I
Because
mean,
I think just the density itself, sorry to interrupt, the density itself, I think is a pretty good incentive. If you've got you got something that's only producing 10 or 20 units, I don't know how many are there, that's what I had. And all of a sudden you can go to 60 to 100,
That
that's pretty good incentive.
which one
number
is?
29.
Okay.
And the other one is theoretically these, but that's a
Yeah.
non-conforming from the 70s.
So maybe that's the incentive, if you have a non-conforming. Beat up. Apartment. But less than 5 acres, you're allowed to. Do this if you're bringing it up to a better standard. I mean, I'm always like the idea of. One of the reasons why you have blighted, not, properties and stuff that's not great is not necessarily because the landowner wants it to be that way, it's because. They can't really change it, because if they change it, they're not meeting the laws of the township. So they wanna keep their business, but they're grandfathered in. So I'll just leave it and let it run out until I can't make any more money and it falls down. So if there's a way to incentivize those owners to convert to a nice building that beautifies our township. Albeit it might be slightly non-conforming, not as ideal. So I don't know if there's a way to, if you're maybe that's it, if you're a non-conforming existing apartment. Or high density residential, but your property is less than 5 acres. You're allowed to, whatever, increase and change your footprint. As long as it meets every other thing in here.
And the 5 acres is arbitrary, frankly. I think the real key is the 12 units per acre. I mean, if you wanted to just do away with the acreage and someone's got a 3-acre plot, 12 times 3 is, you're gonna get 36 units on that.
Yeah, but I think the problem there is then you don't wanna lose you still don't lose all your commercial.
Okay.
So I'm just saying I would like the idea to waive the 5 acres if it's already a non-conforming. I don't know how many other, it's at least one.
I truly believe there is only
There may be more than one.
There might be two. So the Cabana Lane, Coca Lane, that's an existing non-conformity. They got that certificate that was pre-zoning that it was that. So I think they should be eligible, but they are also theoretically eligible already.
Cause they're
Sans
500.
the 500 feet limitation. So if we change that number, that's
Well,
kind of
let's-
the important.
Let's look at, I mean, it'd be fun to go around the township and be like, how many of these are blighted properties where the landowner might be incentivized to build something
The
nice?
Mount Motel theoretically is also.
I think is there a long-term stay there?
That's what I hear. I don't think we've got many complaints about it,
Yes.
but
I've done evictions there, which usually implies longer term.
Okay.
yeah.
So that's
So like,
fine.
I would love to see that, cause then that. Right now, I don't know if they're ever going to open, but it's supposed to be like an assisted living facility next door. I forget the name
What happened with it?
of that, cause they did a lot of work. It looks really nice, ready to go.
On the other side, the vet side or the other side?
On the other side,
The right side.
the living place. That corridor would be really nice. Also, Brett's favorite thing, sidewalks. If you have more of this along there on the larger parcel, they're gonna
You're gonna
have to
get
give us the
sidewalks.
easement and give us the, if they're big enough, do the improvement, but they're also gonna have internal sidewalks, a lot
Well,
of them.
I would say for anyone that's putting in these apartments, it's gonna make sense to have sidewalks because
Yeah.
you got people walking around.
Correct. And we have also the fee in lieu of open space, so because the lot coverage is decent. We're gonna be able to generate some revenue to improve the facilities that will be near them if they don't provide the facilities themselves. And I would guess that most will want to do like a community center playground type of thing for their residents, but some will just be so small, the fee in lieu of makes a lot more
What's
sense.
our minimum? PRDs are not allowed in ED.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Well,
I'm just trying to think. Yeah, you see that a lot in PRDs, but not necessarily in it.
Right.
this is all great discussion, but let's get to the point where we can launch the ship, see if it floats.
I think if we have enough of the information, we can get the ball rolling by. At our next meeting on the 25th, which is a regular voting meeting. We could trigger a review from.
Is this an ordinance format though? It needs to be an ordinance. format.
It's very close. Because basically there would have to be a preamble. Added,
Oh, yeah.
because this is a different options, this is adding a new section, so it doesn't have to repeal and restate anything.
Right,
But it will have
but it
to
may have to
add.
add some definitions.
Yeah, it has to add the definition here into 27-1001. It has to add it to the schedule of district use regulations as a principal permitted use, and it has to add the usual repealer and whatnot, but it's pretty close.
I would like to see us pass this next week.
Well, it can't be passed next week. It's gotta go to review. It's gotta
It's
go
gonna
to,
be sent it for review to the
yeah.
planning commission. Blessing. So maybe if we can get a copy of the amendment form, we can just make one of those and
Yeah, we just need it in
get it done.
legal form and with
And remove these prohibited threat states.
so let me ask to be clear, are we removing the prohibition on the direct access, right? Cause we're gonna let
Yes.
PennDOT do that. Frontage limitation. Did anyone have a thought on that? I know it's.
I think it's fine. I think my one thing is for both that and the 5 acres that could be waived if it was an existing non-conforming. High density residential development. Or maybe you don't call it that. Because high density residential development, will have a definition of a certain number, but just say multi-unit residential development, which again, there's only a few of them, but I think they're all pretty open.
I will not disagree with you there, okay. Well, Alex will be back in a minute, if there's any. Comment, I mean, we're not voting. But if there's any
Yeah, let's take comments from the.
comment, we can take that now.
What about your FEMA, are you gonna put that in here, or are you gonna do that at another time?
Well, so I went and checked that ordinance, it's already built in there, the only thing is we have to decide, I guess, if we want to make any changes to it, but from the math I did, it was actually not bad, many people say we're low, but let's run a quick example, since we have a second. Find that, I think that's in chapter 22, if I'm not mistaken.
The area of,
Providing open space, recreational open space.
right. Hey, if someone knocks a building down and creates open space, do they get cash from the township?
I don't think so.
Could do a reverse fee and we got. And you,
If they knock something down and create open space, they pay those taxes.
it's true.
That is true.
I mean, it's their own property, right?
Yeah.
Or
Or if they give it away, then, and give it to the township, then they definitely pay less taxes, because they don't pay any on that part.
That's correct, and some places propose to do that, and we permit a combination of land improvements or fees in order to achieve that.
Right.
I'm just gonna open up the fee schedule real quick so I can tell you what it is currently for the fee in lieu of open space. Okay, so all land development plans for the first 2,500 feet, it is a flat $1,500. And then you add 25 cents.
1,500 feet of
Yeah.
building that you've created? Or impervious, what is 1,500 feet of what?
I think that's 2,500 square feet of improvement.
Improvement, okay, alright, probably
I would have to,
probably means impervious, maybe not,
yeah, well, I'll have to double check the ordinance, the fee schedule is kind of abridged on that.
okay,
But then you add 25 cents per each additional square foot of new building construction,
building,
so.
That's low.
that's what I
It is definitely low, because I think, John, you mentioned that Pocono.
Is that volume or, so if you go up, you also pay, that's not just footprint. Cause
Well-
footprint matters more, right, doesn't it? I guess not.
No, footprint would be worse, because.
That makes it last.
Yeah.
No, but I would add, I mean, make it more expensive, but just do footprint.
Well, you could do that, but
I guess,
Then you could build,
well, I mean, you're talking about gross floor area though, but that would be the higher one, because if someone do 5 stories, 10,000.
I'm just saying, like, does it matter? Like, well, if you're really thinking about what we're trying to achieve,
Oh, do we care, is what you're asking?
do you, if your objective is to create open space for developments that are happening, does it make sense that you should be required to create more open space if you're going up? And I guess maybe the answer is yes, because you're just more volume, more people, more things.
I think you're gonna have more people meet the requirement, especially, so the median parcel that would be eligible is like just under 15 acres. There's really only a couple on the small side that would theoretically be eligible, and one of them is one that PennDOT says no. So, and that, because that's like 5.6 acres, so I think on the larger parcels, you're much more likely to get compliance, so probably less fees. It's the smaller ones that would end up paying. But,
So that might need to be adjusted.
well, yeah, I mean, I think we should figure out, and that just will require reading that ordinance, whether or not it's. I don't know what each additional square foot of new building construction means in relation
you may
to
wanna consider for the high density residential, a fee
a
per
special.
dwelling unit.
Uh-huh,
It's a fee per unit.
Then just make it on top of what we have, that way you don't have to, you can adjust that later.
so a fee per unit, and that will be added in this section, which adds to chapter 22. But it'll be set per the fee schedule, so we can
You can,
change
so
that.
you can change it without having to change your ordinances.
Okay. Alright, so before we move on to signs, does anyone want to comment? Just say your name, Julia will. Time. Go ahead.
These parcels that you were saying that are like available. Do we know what they are? Are they hitting any of the like,
It's exclusively ED,
okay,
So that means exclusively basically 447, 209, 209,
Okay,
the triangle.
yeah,
And it's acres, it's ones that are, I mean,
I
you
think
said
there's-
5 acres,
Five.
yeah, 5 or more.
Yeah, we'll have a map. Like, we have a small version right here. There's some data verification that has to
I'd
go
like
on.
to see it. I mean,
Yeah, no,
this is not, you can take a look.
yeah,
Awesome,
yeah, we're gonna upload a map once we have,
This would,
just so I
Monroe
can
County
see
did
like.
this one?
kind of-
yeah. That includes
you
some,
Okay.
can keep it.
yeah,
Thank you,
yeah, we'll have a new draft, map, and it won't be, the map itself is kind of just illustrative, and not necessarily determinative, because it's not an overlay.
okay,
And by the way, that also just says where it might be possible.
yeah, it's not definitely where it's gonna happen.
That's like
it's just-
analyzing this ordinance, seeing where could actually someone actually do this, and that's where you get.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and like I said, I went through the original list of 73 parcels that were given to me by the planning commission based on criteria in this, and some of them were R2, which are not eligible. One was R1, which is not eligible, so I removed
Some of it,
some of those, but we'll have a more firm map once we, make these couple of changes here, which, may have some practical.
That might
changes.
increase a couple if we remove
okay,
the direct taxes. No, it shouldn't, because they didn't know that. They did that.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
And they can make us maps of
And
any.
by the way, oh, that's the other one. The big thing here is it has to have water and sewer. Half of those don't have water
yeah,
and
they
sewer.
don't, no, that's
No,
what I was just looking.
That was
at.
gonna be in the eventuality that of one day there was water and sewer there.
That went there,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not
I
there.
got what you're
The only
saying.
ones that really definitely have it are 209 Seven Bridge Road up to Smithfield Gateway.
Yeah,
At
Yeah.
that point is basically the cutoff. And
It's
then,
basically that L. the
Yeah.
447.
this L right here.
and then there's a bit on Milford Road, is there not?
Up to the airport, I think, right around there.
I don't
Yeah.
know where, do they have water and sewer?
Yeah, 'cause that was the upgrade in, a couple years ago, there was a grant for Airport Road and Airstrip Road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Anyone on the phone? No?
yeah, Brett.
Just curious, how much of a hindrance is the jungle of definitions for commercial properties to us, like between inn and motel and extended stay? Is that a pain for us?
It's not I'll answer, I don't think it's a pain, but it's where you get some loopholes. Cause, and, I mean, one of them is just, honestly, it's just weird, I think, hotel and, no, sorry, inn and resort. They're very different definitions, and one meets different criteria, but then where they're allowed are exactly the same. So it's like, who cares what the hell, whether it's an inn or a resort, cause they're allowed in the same place. Or not allowed in the same place.
Doesn't negatively impact what you guys do necessarily.
No, but I mean, the example I just gave, this extended stay, it's not well defined, and so you're able to go as a hotel when the idea was certainly not that you would have residential in that, on that frontage. Now, we're changing that a little bit here, but we're putting all sorts of requirements on that.
Right. I would say, in addition to that, a lot of those uses are not even permitted in the EV zone. So I hope over time, we're able to look at those again. I think that we want to tackle bed and breakfast as the kind of straightforward one, in the near future. But some of the lodging definitions in the ED zone, could use some change. A lot of it is because there were some uses that were permitted to the predecessor to the ED zone, which were 3 separate zones.
Right, so you could have a hotel in a B1, but not, or in a C1, but not in a B2, and you could have it in this way and this way, but now because it was got combined,
Right,
it's just a little messy.
cause the thought at that point was, which is why the B2, B1 zones kind of evolved the way they did. Is that they were going to be, medical corridors, and they were definitely right, that happened. Wall Street West and some of these other businesses that for, post 9/11, latency storage, different things like that didn't come to fruition, but the rest of the corridor did, and that's kind of what drove the sewer and water to those areas, which now makes it eligible for this. So in some ways, it's good too.
Wall Street West doesn't have sewage water. No, Wall Street West.
Well, there is no, I mean, they didn't do it.
No, that's what I'm saying, like that didn't happen, but I meant the medical drive in the
They do have
mid-2000s.
water sewer on 447 basically, we're talking.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is because the school was constructed across the street from where the Franklin Hill Road realignment and potential projects.
So that's pretty old enough.
Yeah, so that drove that too. So this is kind of takes advantage of some stuff that maybe was anticipated for different reasons, but now we can benefit from that.
Is that map you distribute, is that project pretty much dead in the water? This development on,
By no means, with this draft, if it were enacted, it would be by right. Part of the issue, and
Not exactly like this.
No.
This would not be by right.
no, that they are going to. Well, technically, the one in front of us, if they did mixed use, but. The problem is it just was never going to work on that parcel. So right now, it would be just straight residential, so there'd be less parking, I think, probably than what's on
Like
here.
half so much. Right.
So there'd be a difference there, cause I think at the time too, demand-based parking wasn't remotely
even
contemplated.
considered,
So there's a lot of dead space there, so what we're doing is still gonna be promoting the density on that parcel.
and they couldn't extend Pool Road. Across 447 there.
What do you mean extended?
That's what I was saying.
You mean create the intersection?
Yeah. It's
I mean,
possible that.
They might be
PennDOT would
required to.
But that, we don't determine that PennDOT would, cause it's their road. If this was our road. This was our road, PennDOT still is in charge, right? No?
it's our road, we're in charge.
447 is, it does.
You really can't make someone do something on the opposite side. The most you can do is make them line up with it. Hard to make them improve that intersection. You can try, some townships try,
Right,
just depends how hard the developer pushes back.
right. Well, I this from experience. PennDOT doesn't like when we push, and then either that would probably not help us either.
Right.
But yeah, no, so this parcel would be ready-made for this type of development. And there's probably a couple others that are similar to it. This one got variances because it's topographically challenged and the realignment of the road is the biggest key to that one, because even if he wanted to just do it, there's a good chance that he might have been required to anyway, so the fact that this was kind of willing is good, and it is far less costly than some other road improvements that are required, and he's already signed to do that, the match and everything. And that grant, they will want to see some progress on that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alright, let's talk signage.
Oh, I hate this.
Well, I don't know, Michael, if you want to give a opening foray on that, or if you want Alex to detail where we're at and what we're doing.
I just gotta say, I mean, I spent, so much time on this, as much as Alex has and
Yeah,
David. I mean, personally, after getting to the end and doing it all, I still don't like it. I was thinking about it the other day, I mean, I think we got it to a good place, but at the same time, I mean, you read, Ron's comments,
right,
there's an attempt to. The goal of a lot of this was to help clean up lighted signs.
Yeah.
Raggedy, falling over. Welcome signs that are torn and ripped and that litter our township. Ability to get rid of those. The intention though is not to, infringe on people's rights to promote their business as long as they, or especially if they're doing so on their own property. And I don't think this has not addressed any Off-site signs, because there's a lot to unpack there, and I know it's an area that's important, but it just wasn't addressed. This is a smaller part. This was trying to talk about basically temporary, most of the focus of this is on temporary signs, so yard signs, the flag signs. Right now in our township, you know, you're supposed to have a permit for every single one of those.
Right.
So that's also ridiculous, in some ways, to demand a permit for every sign. Technically, that's what our, again, so like anyone reading this in isolation, it's hard. And some things seem restrictive, but like a business owner might, but if you look at our actual ordinance, it's actually more restrictive in many ways.
Mhm.
But the challenge is it's not necessarily enforced because it's all over the place.
Well, having worked on it for 3 years before you guys took over, I sympathize. It's very difficult. And I think you've done a great job with it, and I think the idea of bifurcating and saying, let's deal with this part, let's get this part passed, and then we'll worry about off-premises signs is the way to go.
But I guess I'm all for, I honestly am being very true, I'm all for community input on this from both business owners and non-business owners, that some want less signs, some want to maintain every right to have every possible sign.
Right.
And again, we already have laws on this. We're not adding laws, we're changing them.
Right.
So, you know, going through, we don't have, it doesn't make sense for us to go through these things, but I think, you know, the community would wanna know, wanna understand, you know, there's some things here that are absolutely prohibited, so abandoned signs are technically prohibited, snipe signs, we already know they're prohibited, they're still all over the place. Inflatable, you know, signs,
Keep going.
signs which prevent free ingress or egress from any outdoor window escape, that's already the case.
Yeah.
Signs that emit smoke, particularly, you know, this is not Las Vegas. Signs containing mirrors, because they're dangerous. Signs erected without the permission of the property owner, so that basically protects the owner. If someone puts a sign on your property, that is also not legal. Signs that exhibit pornography, and signs that promote illegal activity, those are outright not allowed. I don't think there was many changes to that. I guess there's a few changes. Alex, do you remember?
The definitions, not to interrupt, but I think the definitions here are kind of the most important.
Well, we added
mention.
definitions that needed to be there that weren't there before.
Yeah, I think there's a couple areas that you wanted to express input on before we would do anything else, but I think that.
A big part of this is around the removal of abandoned signs, removal of unlawful signs, removal of unsafe signs.
Yeah.
And by the way, none of this changes if this is, and Ron had said, you need to define permanent. I thought we did. I thought it was there as something that requires a building permit. Because if you're putting concrete in the ground and putting a sign in the ground, you'd need a building permit. That's in our ordinance already. If you're just sticking something in the ground, hammering it in, actually, if you're hammering it in, it might be. It does not require a permit, and we're actually saying now this actually is more open. You can put that in. But you have to put a date on it, on that sign, and then you have a maximum number of days you can have it up there. Right now, you actually have to go right now, technically, you have to get a permit even for that temporary sign.
Well, another part of it, I think you did very well on, is legitimizing signs that up till now were either illegal or quasi-legal, that have a component which is about constitutional rights for free speech. And we've cleaned that up, I think, very well.
Yeah, I mean, free speech is not inhibited in any way, shape, or form. You can't control what is written on the sign, but you can say whether there is allowed to be a sign or not.
Right.
And signs are allowed everywhere and in some way, shape, or form. But there's certain, you know.
Yeah.
But that's normal and permit. So one thing I think people might, you know, that we have to think about is the ability to just go in and remove these temporary signs. with certain notice, yeah, I don't know, was there anything else, Alex, you wanted to sort of focus on?
Ron suggested instead of just going and removing like the snipe signs, you just send a letter to the property owner and give them 72 hours notice. It's up to you guys if you want to put that in or not.
So for most snipe signs, the property owner is the utility company because they're on the utility company, and the utility company is already giving us a
They
letter
provided us consent.
stating that, you know, none of them are allowed. So that's effectively gotten that permission. So I think in the case of other examples, probably makes sense as well
Okay.
to have some sort of timeframe.
I mean, you can go down,
I think all of Ron's things we should go through and change.
yeah.
I mean, there is legal, before we do anything with this.
Yeah.
We need another look at this with all of his changes incorporated.
Yeah,
And
that's,
they're pretty small, they're like delete this word, delete that word.
and that's what's been done. That's what you have.
Oh, we have with changes?
Yep, all highlighted things in there are his changes. So all that's been done.
I didn't even notice, I thought this was still being submitted, so, okay.
Now, so basically, I can just go down his entire memo. So basically. The only one I wanted to talk to the board today about is changing the definition of sign completely because Ron caught that. And if you look at your current. You know, and Michael correctly said, all this is an update to chapter 27. You're not adding. Really, you're basically doing the same thing, but now it's. You know, consistent with Gilbert and Reed, the Supreme Court case, which
Right.
is necessary anyway.
Correct.
But Ron did correctly point out that you might want to look at the definition for sign, and indeed. The current definition of sign does allude to content base, and so the model ordinance where all this came from has a much simpler and probably safer definition, which I'd recommend replacing.
Can you tell me where it is?
It's actually not even in this because
Okay.
it's actually in chapter 27, and this is why.
Oh, I
yeah,
understand.
The other
Yeah,
It's
word,
in, it's in zoning, yeah.
It's in zoning,
As
and
a use,
it never
yeah.
got pulled out and into this edit because the committee never really, you know, had a legal. That looked at it.
Well, we thought about, we changed the definition of temporary sign, and we changed the definition of unzipped
Well, is
sign,
that
and
why
vehicular
you-
sign, but never the word sign.
Is that why in 27-309, the schedule of district use regs, is that where we would say signage per. You know, X ordinance? Is that what we would say? Cause the definition there is great, but it's not, I don't know that sign is listed as a use, so I'm wondering. Are we, I don't think it's wise to add every single type of sign that we're talking about here, but signage per the signage chapter, right?
Oh,
It's not, this is in chapter 27 right now, Jake.
Okay, so these are all gonna be-
All of your sign stuff is.
Sorry.
You're not creating a standalone chapter.
No,
That
no,
idea is-
it's not doing that anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
sorry,
what you're talking about is referring to, what is it, section 1090 or 1009 or something, which is other words.
Correct.
yeah, sorry, that's my mistake, so this is adding all, okay.
Correct.
Well, it's changed, it's removing and adding, as we always do.
Yeah, so I would recommend I would recommend using the model, so all the things Ron pointed out were great caches, and you have a good attorney here.
There are little things like,
Yeah,
we didn't define day.
yeah, like I pretty much just went through and adopted all of his changes,
Yeah,
so I don't really. The only thing is, you know, instead of leasee, I wrote property owner. I mean, it's all pretty straightforward, he caught a couple of great things, I'd recommend updating the definition for sign. The definitions for temporary and limited
do
duration.
you have a definition?
It's basically from the model ordinances, it says any device, structure, fixture, painting, emblem, or visual that uses words, graphics, colors, illumination, symbols, numbers, or letters for the purpose of. Numbers, letters, that's designed for or used to convey a message, and that is visible from the public right away or
Right.
other public places.
We just don't have it in front of us in.
By the
this.
way, that last sentence is extremely important. Visible from the public right of way. It matters because there's parts of this, I think it was this one, certainly in the last version. Yeah, it's under signs that are excluded from, that are allowed everywhere. Because if you have a large property and you have, for instance, a piece of paper on the door that says open, that's meant to be for someone that's walking on there, it's not.
Right,
It was not,
internal.
even though it could be considered a sign, it's got text, all this stuff. But if you can't view it from the public right of way, it's not visible, it's something that's intended to sort of guide someone when they're sort of on property. Same reason as for a restaurant, if it says driveway, right, go this way to go to the drive-through, that doesn't count.
So we're not having a
That's not being,
process on those because they're not visible, right?
they're written in here. Are they written in here? Well, we had them in the old version.
Well,
I think it was under signs allowed. They're not here.
Well, I mean, your current definition. You know, the point is, you know, I'm still working on, you know, the model work, a lot of it, basically Ron's right, you should probably update the definition for sign, and I would recommend
Yeah.
going to the model ordinance.
Yeah, so that also addresses that. I know we had it in here somewhere else also being
Yeah.
addressed. But that also does that.
And basically, the rest of his edits were pretty straightforward. Some of the definitions needed to be changed, and I just went back to the model ordinance because that was written when Gilbert Green was being looked at. So
Right.
when the committee talked to the county planning commission, they specifically said that it's defensible with Gilbert Reed in mind.
Okay.
So temporary signs, abandoned signs, limited duration signs, I changed all those definitions back to the model ordinance. And you know, basically it's kind of ready to go at this point, and. You know, if you want, you know, what the board could do is, you know, set a hearing date and, you know, get public input, trigger formal reviews. And go from there. You know, at this point, I think you've probably taken it as far as you can internally. Let's, you know, if you want to have a hearing and listen to the public and get the county, because the county review is gonna be.
Critical.
That's the last one that, you know, your zoning officer reviewed this like 4 times.
Yeah,
This is Ron's second review. T&M weighed in. I mean, this has been reviewed. You know, the flag's been brought up and down the pole so many times, it's perhaps feeling on fire.
Yeah.
I would say set a hearing and see what happens and get the public comment, and then, you know, you don't have to adopt it. You can Go from there.
well, we'll put it on next week to trigger the review windows for these 2 ordinances tonight with the changes that were described, and then we can, you know, the ball will be formally rolling on those 2.
Great.
Any public comment on the sign ordinance?
Is there a implementation program once you pass this? For updating or classifying signs, like is there gonna be a moratorium 90 days, and then after that you have to
But
conform?
moratoriums really aren't legal in Pennsylvania. The state's trying to do that on data centers, so that might be interesting.
It does, this ordinance itself actually does allow, because of the way it's defining a sign. I believe, but I mean, understanding this from Ron would be good to know. So if someone has taken what is very much a temporary sign. And they have stuck it in the ground like this, and it's a flag. And in the past, well, I mean, the problem with this is it was already not allowed. All it does is, so it was already not allowed, so it's not like it's a non-conforming not allowed, it was already not allowed.
Provides us
What this
program.
does is it does provide the ability to actively set up an easier way to enforce the fact that it was not allowed. It allows for a notice to be given and then the sign to be removed if need be, or for liens to be placed if it's, you know, a large permanent non-conforming or not non-conforming illegal sign.
Yeah,
I guess I was thinking about how to inform the public that they need to be aware of the signs.
I don't know if they hear anything. I mean, you have so many junk removal signs out there, and I personally call them and say, hey, you've got all these signs on utility poles, they're not allowed, and they hang up in my face.
Yeah.
They don't care.
I think that this targets most of the nuisance signs, which is slightly different than the blighted signs. And the folks that care enough to try to comply with the ordinance that will want to know how are people that almost certainly have off-premises signs, right?
This does not address off.
No, but that's what I'm saying though. So what I'm saying is, we will be informative about this and detailed. Thank God there's imagery in our ordinance that we can pull from to demonstrate, which is probably one of the better things. But I guess what I'm saying too is the signs that everyone really worries about, the ones that have to go through approvals for permanent, status. Those are off premises signs and they're not dealt with
I
yet.
guess I'll also say, of all the things that might be removed, none of it's gonna cost theoretically, the property owner any money. Be like, it's being taken out and given to you. And
Yeah,
told those, you're allowed to have those up for 30 days. That's the way it is.
And
90 days.
advance notice. Is there any plan to, alert the public? Oh, and by the way.
Well, I mean, we have to publicize the ordinance and all that stuff and get it out there.
I mean, I see what you're getting at, Brett, but for the most part, the biggest target of this is we buy houses for cash, not like, not any serious.
Most of the difference is gonna, if everything goes to plan, it'll just be people, I think generally people maybe noticing, oh, there's a little bit less garbage on the road.
Yeah, we still do periodically remove snipe signs. There has not been the easiest ability with the snow because you can't really get over where you need to in order to remove the stuff, but it'll just be a more advanced version of that. There's a lot of other stuff, but I think certainly when it comes to if we ever do get to deal with off premises signs, which I hope we do, I think that will be a much more involved process by those that have the signs.
Correct. That's where you can have more. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get to it. Maybe Robert will have to.
Yeah, the March work session will probably deal with, I think at this point, dirty fill is one of the top issues and I've been working on that, yeah, and then in April, we'll have more.
And Mr. Chairman, just to point out, there is a 90-day period where the limited duration signs must be permanently removed within 90 days unless specifically. So there is a 90-day sort of window for
Compliance, right?
So it's not like immediately, all these signs are suddenly.
Yeah, no, it's not fair game for us to go.
You have 3 months to, take your banner flags,
Yeah.
the 7 banner flags.
Stuff like that will publicize.
And they're still allowed to be up.
Yeah, they can be up.
Be up multiple times a year too. It's just the idea is having a sign that says new business that's been there for 6 years is.
You get 90 days to try and convince us why you can keep your shredded grand opening sign, but getting rid of those.
And all you're doing is time, place, and manner, not content. That's
Correct.
the most important thing to emphasize.
Correct.
And then there's a whole section that's being added, which specifically says that you can. It's called the part on substitution. You can always substitute. This is right here. Any non-commercial, or we can swap it out every.
By the way,
regularly.
in some ways, this is more permissive, and
Yeah.
I say that because. As I understand it, with as is, there's no definition for a short-term sign or a temporary sign. So honestly, when you put a yard sign, it's like this technically very similar process to building a giant billboard. Only it doesn't require a building permit because there's not building structures. But so in some ways, it's more permissive, but for specific time periods.
Work is very much appreciated, Michael, thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Thank you.
Any general public comment?
I have, Jacob,
Okay.
snipe it banners. Is there anything on the ordinance for that?
Banners, you mean, or like a snipe sign is attached to a utility pole and a banner?
I know,
would
but
be-
there is a specific person that has been putting on utility poles and you have been bringing it down. But now I realize they've now doing a banner. If you're on Brown Street going towards 80 at the stop
Oh,
sign,
yeah.
you're gonna see that banner.
Yeah, I do not believe that sign is legal currently, so I think I believe a letter to the zoning officer or a complaint could trigger that to be removed.
Yeah.
It's already not legal, that
Well,
sign.
it's not on a utility pole, is it, or is it?
No, it's on a big concrete structure.
Okay.
No, it's actually on those, oh my God, the rail guards.
Oh, is it now? That's new.
Oh, that can be
Wait,
removed.
what were you saying?
I thought she was referencing another sign. If it's on the rail guards, I will let Matt know about that. The rails are our property, so
Yeah.
we can remove that.
Yeah, if it's on the rail guards, they can't, that's not their property.
Yeah, because
Sorry,
that property that I'm talking about has nothing, cause it's been demolished. So it's,
Yeah, I know,
so you know what I'm
Vicky,
talking about.
it's the same place.
Yeah, you said it's at the corner of State Route 447 and East Brown Street, correct?
Correct. You can't miss it. It's very colorful.
there's a legal billboard there, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be the other side of the road.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, I know what that is. There are also many snipe signs of that same business.
Correct.
You can have, yep,
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ready for a motion to adjourn?
anyone else?
Anyone else?
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
First by Mr. Albert, second by Mr. Levenheim, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Right, good luck.
Sorry, Robert.
That's it.